If you're serious about your learning and you want to take it to the next level, then you have to try writing mini essays. And I warn you, this will take a lot of time and effort, but you'll gain so much wisdom and perspective in return. They're also one of my most powerful tools for improving how I write. It gives me the opportunity to practice and to really develop the skills and become familiar with the craft. But what are mini essays anyway? Well, they're not the long, boring ones from school where your teachers made you write 2,000 words on some bullshit you didn't care about. These mini essays are actually fun to write, and sometimes they're my favorite part of the day. Mini essays are short pieces of writing that surround a single idea or topic. And in this case, you don't have to get frustrated over choosing what to write about because it's already done for you. And if that sounds bizarre, it will make so much sense, you'll see. Ultimately, they're a tool for learning. If I encounter something in a book that I find really interesting, something that resonates with me, I write a mini essay on it. And that is true for any piece of content, whether it's a book, whether it's a video, an article, even tweets, or even something that someone told you one day. It doesn't matter where these ideas come from, but as long as it stood out to you, it's worth writing about. And that writing takes the form of the mini essay, which is essentially a detailed note. And I write it as if I'm going to teach it to someone else. And you'll see why that's so powerful very shortly. So here's a great example. I was reading an article on Substack written by Rob Henderson, who's an amazing writer, by the way. I'll link him down below. In this article, he shares a story from Thomas Sowell's memoir, and it was about how even people who seem friendly and approachable at first can actually be deceiving, and you may not always be able to trust them. But then on the other hand, you have people who are kind of harsh and cold at first, but as long as they're authentic, you can trust them more. And it can be bad enough that those people who appear nice actually betray you when push comes to shove. This idea stuck out to me, so I took the concept and I wrote a mini essay on it in my own words, as if I'm going to tell someone else about it. And it's not just some scribbled down note. This has a start, an end, and a middle. It has structure to it. But hold on a second. Why go through all this trouble anyway? What's the point? Yes, these are short to write, but they still take a lot of time and effort. So what's in it for you? Why would you even bother putting in the effort to write these? I won't deny that these are an investment. They do take time and effort, but in spite of that, I couldn't care less because the reward you receive in return is so worth it. Every single minute of writing those mini essays is absolutely worth your time, 100%. Ever since I started using these mini essays in my self-education, you can say, which was about 8 months ago, a year maybe, I have seen noticeable improvements in not only my reading quality, but my writing has gotten more powerful too. It's true that the investment is large, but I see improvement in 2 areas of life that really mean a lot to me. And I bet it's the same for you, so let me show you exactly how mini essays are so good for your reading and writing. Now, the first huge benefit of mini essays is something that every reader would kill for. It's the ability to remember and understand what they read. Enough to close the covers of the book and say, I am confident in what I just read, and I can now go and use this and recall the ideas in my daily life. Mini essays help you achieve that by exploiting something called the Feynman technique. And you've probably heard it before, but if you haven't, it's a technique named after the famous physicist Richard Feynman. He's incredibly well known and he was a Nobel Prize winner. So if he uses it as the backbone to his success, then you bet you can too. It's something that anyone can use, whether you're a high schooler or a college professor. It's flexible, it's simple, and arguably it's the best learning strategy ever. Now, the first step involves the learning itself, which is straightforward. You pick up a book, you watch something, you listen to a podcast, anything. So long as you're actively learning, and I would recommend taking notes in the process because that's actually how you force your mind to think. And the second thing you do is you actually teach what you learn to others. And when I say that, I don't mean going out and giving a lecture on it, but you're teaching an imaginary audience. You're producing something as if you're going to tell someone else about it. And you can see where this is going with the mini essays. And this is where the fun part is, because you can use any medium you want. You can write on a whiteboard, you can write notes to yourself, you can film videos or even record audio, whatever suits you best to communicate this point and understand it better. Now, in this case, we're using mini essays because I found that they're the simplest form of teaching. They're easy, they're accessible, and anyone can do it, almost anywhere. And if it sounds intimidating, there's no worries because I'm actually going to go into a step-by-step process later on. Now, this works because teaching what you learn is actually incredibly powerful for your own learning, because not only does that mental work of writing force the ideas to stick, but it also lets you spot gaps in your understanding. And this is the magic of the third step. When you write your mini essays, you're forced to think. When you put ideas onto paper, they're exposed to the world, and you can confront them clearly. Because there's been so many times where I've read something and it was quite insightful, and I thought I understood it. I was like, yeah, well, that makes sense. I'm happy with my reading. But then I find that someone asks me about it, or I try and talk about it on paper by writing. And I realize I actually have no idea what he was saying. I can't put it into words. I can't articulate it. But all that time in my head, I thought I knew it. And it's only until I started writing that I was able to see all the gaps in my understanding. And even though this sounds annoying, it's actually a really good thing. It's a gift in disguise, because now you have the opportunity to make amends. You've shown yourself that you're clearly lacking something. And now the next step is to just return to the source material and kind of patch those holes. And the benefits don't stop pouring in, because when you correct yourself, when you revisit the material and find out what you were missing, that very act helps you remember more. It's just like in school, when you made a mistake, you didn't really make the same mistake twice. And if you can repeat that process, you can learn anything. You can walk away from any book, any video, feeling productive and satisfied with your learning. It makes your progress as clear as it can be. And that is really the backbone of a good life of learning. And I guarantee if you can take some of the most powerful ideas from a book you love and write mini essays on them, you will be unrecognizable down the line. This is truly deep learning. And there's nothing that engages you more with the book than writing mini essays. So just for that reason alone, mini essays are wonderful, but that's only half of their value. Now I'm on a journey to become a better writer. Every day I try and improve my skills and see where I can go. And along the way, mini essays have been my most precious tool for getting there. There's 3 main benefits to them that combine into this perfect trifecta of writing. The first benefit is volume. Many novice writers, and this included me, but they start with a burst of energy and confidence. They have this excitement to become a writer. They tell everyone that they're a writer. They come up with plans. They brainstorm ideas and topics, all these different things. But in spite of all this action and busyness, they don't write anything. It's sad and ironic. Probably the worst form of procrastination too. Now, I'm not saying to be a writer you have to have written a bestseller or grown an email list to 10,000 subscribers. But every writer has to have something to show off. Even if it's not the best quality work, at least it's something. And then you have to ask yourself the tough question: are you a writer or are you a wannabe? I was a wannabe, but mini essays offered a solution, a way out of this black hole of procrastination. Because the only way to escape it and become a good writer is to put in the reps. You don't get strong and build muscle by going to the gym once a month. And you don't become a good writer by spitting out 200 words once in a blue moon. There are no hacks or tricks in this game. And even though that sounds bleak, it's good news, because the only thing that will reward you is effort. Consistent, sustained effort every single day. It guarantees that if you have that patience and that consistency, you will become a good writer. That's a promise from me to you and from every other great writer out there. I make sure to write every day, and I have been for a while now. And over those months, I can see a visible change. It's like practicing an instrument. If you practice every single day, you won't really be able to tell the difference from day to day. But if you stretch that time frame out over the weeks, months, even years, you suddenly see how much you've changed. And the progress becomes real and tangible. And it's exactly the same in writing. Mini essays are not a hack, but they are a tool for helping you get that volume in. And by putting that practice in, you do get better. But how comes? How's that possible? Well, a common hurdle for writers is not knowing what to write about. And this is something that really affected me in the past. I would be sitting there with a blank screen and I'd be confused, not knowing what to write. And you can just sit there for an hour with nothing happening. But with mini essays, this pain is completely absent. It's gone. It doesn't exist. Your writing topic is chosen for you already. It's simply the interesting ideas you've read in a book. And that frees up your mind to just sit down and actually write and get those damn reps in. Through this synergy, by combining my reading with writing mini essays, I can easily clock about 800, 1,000 words a day. And if that doesn't sound like much to you, it is to me, because before I was doing less than 500 a day. So with one change to my routine, I've almost doubled my writing output. And in theory, that means I'll improve my skills twice as fast. So if you can fit mini essays into your everyday learning habits, you will see your writing skills soar. Now, the second benefit to mini essays is novelty. When you scroll through YouTube Shorts or Instagram Reels, why are they so addictive? What is it about them that keeps you glued to the screen? Every few seconds, you can expect to see something new, and that keeps you entertained. Whereas if you were to watch, say, a 2-hour lecture on YouTube, because nothing's really changing throughout that 2 hours, you really have to have a stronger attention span to stay focused. By writing mini essays, you're harnessing the power of novelty to keep you writing for long periods of time. And you know what that means. It means you write more every day, it means you get better every day, and it means you improve at a faster rate than ever before. See, you and I, we're humans, right? We have different interests. If I sat here and told you that you need to stick to your specialized field and you need to talk about this one topic all the time, you wouldn't do that. And I would hate to do that. I would hate to bottle myself into one topic. And mini essays are completely against that idea too, because in the space of 1 hour, you can write about 5 different topics, all of which are wildly interesting to you. Because each mini essay takes about 10 or 20 minutes to write, all in the space of an hour, I can be writing about content creation, drug cartels, pride, or some literature I read. I can switch between all these vastly different topics so quickly. It keeps writing fun, accessible, and refreshing. And that allows you to just do it for ages. The third benefit to your writing is that mini essays help you build a bank of ideas. A lot of writers dread the blank page. They sit at their computer screen, paralyzed, not knowing what to write about, not knowing where to start, trying to squeeze out an idea, but nothing happens, nothing comes out of it. I know that feeling. Inaction hurts, and there's no good reason why you should suffer from it. And even though I can relate to that feeling, I haven't felt it in over a year, just because of mini essays. Ever since I started using them, I've never been stuck on what to write, ever. If anything, I have too much to write. And of course, I'm not complaining at all about that. And this is all because I built a bank of ideas that I can draw from whenever I need. I use this note-taking app called Obsidian, and with just the click of a button, it slaps me in the face with this massive network of knowledge. And because I tagged every note and connected it to similar ones, I can just jump anywhere into this network and find some inspiration on what to write about. For example, if I felt inspired to write about a meaningful life, I can click on the meaning tag and it shows me everything about meaning that I've written, ever. And from here, I can look around and see what makes me curious and what I can maybe expand upon. So for example, here there's a note called Meaning Justifies Suffering. But then I also see a note about education and how we have to take it into our own hands. Immediately in my mind, I see, hold on a second, maybe I could connect those two ideas somehow. Maybe how meaning applies to our self-education and being lifelong students, for example. These are two wildly different ideas coming together to form something new and exciting. And that example is with a narrow view. I can open up this entire graph to reveal 100, maybe 1,000 different entry points of writing. There's just so much to talk about that you really never run out of ideas with this. And as a bonus tip, you can actually use each mini essay to help you write the final piece of work. So for example, if I want to flesh out an idea more, I sometimes look back at the mini essay I wrote, and maybe I really liked how I phrased something there. Or maybe I used a quote that was really powerful and punchy. Or perhaps I liked the structure and I want to kind of copy that into my bigger piece of work. The mini essays will always give you that foundation and that starting point. I always think of it as my own personal writing assistant in the palm of my hand. It's brilliant. I couldn't live without mini essays. And if you think it's time for you to also step up your reading and writing game, then you might be wondering, how can I actually apply this? How can I actually write them, and where should I write them, and all these different questions. So now I want to dive into the raw details that can help you actually apply this concept and start writing your own. So first, what makes a mini essay? What are the do's and don'ts? Well, first and most importantly, they have to be short, because if you're writing too many words, then they just become full-blown essays. And that's good in itself, but it kind of defeats the purpose of this as a note-taking technique. So if you feel that desire to write a full-on essay, do that, but keep the other mini essays shorter and more concise. Mine are roughly 100 to 300 words long, which is just a few paragraphs. As a good rule of thumb, I try and fit everything on one page without having to scroll. This is important because it stops you from rambling, which I have the tendency to do. It helps you practice being brief, which is such an important skill for any writer out there. Exactly how you structure these mini essays is completely up to you. In my case, I write these knowing that I'm going to release them to the world at some point in time. So because of that, I try and keep it informative, entertaining, and actionable. But of course, that's just me. You might have completely different needs, and the structure of your mini essays should reflect what you want. So for example, you might be practicing your storytelling. So maybe you want to include a story in each of your notes. Or maybe you love prose or poetry, and you kind of want to integrate that element into it. This method is yours, and above all, it should serve you to achieve your goals. And that means you adjust it to your needs, and you have that confidence to carve your own path of learning. And that remains true, but there's one tip in writing these mini essays that will save you from a bunch of stress, and that's to keep them restricted to a single concept or idea. So what that means is every single mini essay should be about one thing, and one thing alone. And this is important because as soon as you try and integrate many different elements and concepts, it starts getting complicated. You start to lose the clarity of the message, and it just becomes a jumble. I'd save the connections and the more complicated stuff for longer pieces of writing. I know it's tempting to pull other ideas in sometimes, but trust me on this one, it will make the process so much easier if you stick to a single concept. The final question is, where do you write these essays? I use a free note-taking app called Obsidian, and that's where you've seen all the footage I put on the screen. I would recommend it because it can be used offline, and it has this really nice graph feature that just lets you see all the notes you've ever made in a visual format. And of course, it's simple, it's minimalistic, it keeps things focused on the writing rather than all these other gimmicks and features. And after a whole year of using it, it's continued to serve me well. But of course, the options are endless, really. There's so many note-taking apps out there. I would just recommend that you use something that A, allows you to connect notes, which is important, and B, allows you to use it offline. That means you can, of course, connect ideas and form new ones and keep your knowledge somewhat arranged, but it also means you can use it wherever you are, and you don't have to rely on having an internet connection. But whatever you choose, the most important thing is to stay consistent. The platform is not the important part. The important part is showing up every day to write. If you make mini essays a habit, I promise you, you will become a better reader, but also a skilled writer. It's my favorite way to kill two birds with one stone and really make this life of learning I can be happy with. I hope you can find value in this method. And of course, if you have any questions on how you can set it up or which note apps to use or anything at all related to this, my email is open, the comments are open, and as always, I'm happy to help you there. I hope you enjoyed the video and of course, subscribe for more.